Azure IoT Hub, questions and answers. 1. What is Azure IoT Hub? Azure IoT Hub is a managed cloud service that acts as a centralized message hub for bidirectional communication between your IoT application and the devices it manages. 2. How do Azure IoT Hub events differ from regular IoT Hub messages? Azure IoT Hub events are system-generated messages that report the status or changes in IoT Hub, whereas regular IoT Hub messages are typically device-to-cloud or cloud-to-device communications. 3. How do you set up event subscriptions in Azure IoT Hub? Event subscriptions can be configured via the Azure portal under the Events section of your IoT Hub. Here you can specify the event type and the endpoint where these events should be sent. 4. What are shared access policies in Azure IoT Hub? Shared access policies define the permissions for a shared access key, which is used to authenticate against the IoT Hub. 5. What are the essential parameters required to configure Azure IoT Hub? Some essential parameters include the IoT Hub name, subscription, resource group, and the location, region, where it will be hosted. 6. How can you query devices in Azure IoT Hub? You can query devices using the IoT Hub query language, which allows you to filter and sort devices based on device twin properties, tags, and more. 7. What is a device module in the context of Azure IoT Hub? A device module is a software component that extends the capabilities of an IoT device connected to Azure IoT Hub. 8. Explain device provisioning in Azure IoT Hub. Device provisioning in Azure IoT Hub is the process of configuring devices to automatically register themselves with IoT Hub when they first come online. 9. What is Azure Device Twin? Azure Device Twin is a JSON document that stores device metadata and synchronized state information between a device and Azure IoT Hub. 10. How does Azure Device Update work? Azure Device Update allows you to remotely manage firmware and software updates on IoT devices connected to Azure IoT Hub. 11. What are reported properties in Azure Device Twin? Reported properties are properties set by the device and sent to IoT Hub, often reflecting the device's current state. 12. What are desired properties in Azure Device Twin? Desired properties are properties set by the cloud and sent to the device to dictate desired states or configurations. 13. What is the purpose of tags in Azure Device Twin? Tags are used for organizing and querying devices at the cloud level and are not visible to the devices. 14. How is device authentication handled in Azure IoT Hub? Device authentication is commonly handled using either symmetric keys, X.509 certificates, or token-based authentication. 15. How does Application Insights integrate with Azure IoT Hub? Application Insights can be used to monitor IoT Hub operations and events, helping you to understand the performance and usage of your IoT application. 16. What identity services does Azure IoT Hub offer? Azure IoT Hub integrates with Azure Active Directory and uses device IDs to manage device identities. 17. What does scale-up mean in the context of Azure IoT Hub? Scale-up usually refers to adding more resources, like CPUs or memory, to an existing IoT Hub instance to handle more traffic or computational needs. 18. What does scale-out mean in the context of Azure IoT Hub? Scale-out refers to adding more instances of IoT Hub, sometimes across different regions, to distribute the load and achieve higher availability. 19. How does Azure Active Directory authentication work with IoT Hub? Azure Active Directory can be integrated with IoT Hub to authenticate users and applications, allowing role-based access control. 20. What types of encryption does Azure IoT Hub support? Azure IoT Hub supports encryption in transit using SSL/TLS and encryption at rest using Azure Storage Service Encryption. 21. How is the performance of Azure IoT Hub measured? Performance is often measured by throughput, latency, and the number of successfully processed messages. 22. What are the availability guarantees of Azure IoT Hub? Azure IoT Hub offers a service level agreement, SLA, of at least 99.9% availability. 23. Is SSL/TLS mandatory for Azure IoT Hub communications? Yes, SSL/TLS is mandatory to ensure secure communications between devices and Azure IoT Hub. 24. What are the size limitations of messages in Azure IoT Hub? The maximum message size is 256 kilobytes. 25. How can you handle messages that exceed the Azure IoT Hub size limit? Messages exceeding the size limit must be chunked into smaller pieces by the device or application and then reassembled upon receipt. 26. How does Azure IoT Hub ensure message reliability? Azure IoT Hub employs a range of techniques like message acknowledgements and retries to ensure reliable message delivery. 27. What are the throughput units in Azure IoT Hub? Throughput units are a measure of the number of messages per second that an IoT Hub can handle, and you can purchase additional units to increase capacity. 28. How is pricing determined for Azure IoT Hub? Pricing is based on the chosen tier, the number of messages per day, and additional features like device management or cloud-to-device messaging. 29. What device management features does Azure IoT Hub offer? Azure IoT Hub offers features like device twin, device provisioning, and direct methods for robust device management. 30. What security features are built into Azure IoT Hub? Azure IoT Hub provides features like per-device authentication, SSL/TLS for encrypted communications, and role-based access control. 31. How long does Azure IoT Hub retain telemetry data? Azure IoT Hub does not retain telemetry data. It must be captured by an endpoint like Azure Blob Storage, Event Hub, or Azure Table Storage. 32. What are direct methods in Azure IoT Hub? Direct methods allow you to invoke actions or methods on a device on demand from the cloud. 33. What is cloud-to-device messaging in Azure IoT Hub? Cloud-to-device messaging allows sending messages from the cloud to devices, and it offers features like message expiration and delivery acknowledgement. 34. What is device-to-cloud messaging in Azure IoT Hub? Device-to-cloud messaging is the sending of telemetry data from the device to the cloud. 35. How can Azure Stream Analytics be used with Azure IoT Hub? Azure Stream Analytics can ingest real-time data from Azure IoT Hub for real-time analytics and then send the processed data to various output sinks. 36. What query language is used for Azure IoT Hub device querying? Azure IoT Hub uses a SQL-like query language for querying device twins and other data. 37. How do you enable diagnostic logs in Azure IoT Hub? Diagnostic logs can be enabled via the Azure portal under the monitoring section of your IoT Hub instance. 38. What monitoring options are available for Azure IoT Hub? Azure IoT Hub offers built-in integration with Azure Monitor and Azure Application Insights for comprehensive monitoring. 39. What are the options for performing real-time analytics with Azure IoT Hub? Azure Stream Analytics, Azure Time Series Insights, and custom Azure Functions can be used for real-time analytics. 40. How can you perform batch processing on data from Azure IoT Hub? Data can be batched using Azure Databricks or Azure HD Insight for batch processing tasks like historical analysis. 41. Can you integrate Azure Data Factory with Azure IoT Hub for batch processing? Yes, Azure Data Factory can be used to ingest data from Azure IoT Hub into various data stores for batch processing. 42. What mechanisms does Azure IoT Hub offer for connection resiliency? Azure IoT Hub supports connection retries and keep alive pings to maintain a resilient connection between the devices and the hub. 43. What device SDKs does Azure IoT Hub support? Azure IoT Hub offers SDKs for various languages and platforms, including C, Python, Java, and .NET. 44. How does Azure IoT Hub handle geo-disaster recovery? Azure IoT Hub offers geo-disaster recovery features that allow you to fail over to a secondary region in the event of an outage. 45. What is traffic routing in Azure IoT Hub? Traffic routing allows you to automatically route messages to custom endpoints based on specific conditions. 46. How does message routing differ from traffic routing in Azure IoT Hub? Message routing specifically deals with routing device messages based on certain conditions, while traffic routing encompasses a broader range of data, including events and telemetry. 47. What are job services in Azure IoT Hub? Job services are background operations that perform bulk device management tasks like twin updates or direct method invocations. 48. How can Azure Logic Apps be integrated with Azure IoT Hub? Azure Logic Apps can be triggered by events from Azure IoT Hub, allowing you to create automated workflows based on device data or events. 49. What are partitions in Azure IoT Hub? Partitions in IoT Hub are data organization units that allow you to process data in parallel, enhancing scalability. 50. What is skew in the context of Azure IoT Hub? Skew refers to the time difference that might exist between the server time of Azure IoT Hub and the local time of a device or application. Thanks for watching.